Hi, everyone. We're here with Nora Picasso, a special guest who has done a lot of work, a lot of advocacy, also a lot of work specifically with immigrants who have crimes, or let's say alleged with crimes. And so she has provided, and continues to provide strategic advice to criminal defense attorneys, and is connected with also with public defenders as well. So let's go ahead and bring her on. Hi, Nora. Welcome to the show.
Hey John, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we connected recently, and I always like to bring guests on, just like yourself, who ultimately can provide service, obviously with clients, but a substantial benefit that don't usually hear about, right?
Hmm.
Most people think about your service is more behind the scenes. It's not like because this person had a crime. We
Right.
want to put it out there here on Green Card Guys that um, first of all, thank you for being here. But
Thank
people need
you.
to essentially know your rights and just way in advance, including criminal defense attorneys. So again, this recording today is for people who are immigrants, but also for criminal defense attorneys and public defenders. So Nora, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Super excited to be here and to talk about these issues that every day become more and more important.
Well, to start off here, I also should have mentioned this earlier. I was part of Dallas Association of Young Lawyers back in the day, and I noticed in your profile that you won an award of outstanding young lawyer of Texas. So
Yeah.
congrats on that. I think that was
Thank
this time
you.
last year.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, 2024.
And I know a lot of hours go into that application that you put forth for the community. So
Yeah, no, definitely. But it was a beautiful process too.
absolutely. Just to kick off here, this, of course, a lot of these Q&A here is common for us, but it's very important that others in the community understand. So to kick it off, why should a person charged with a crime, regardless no matter misdemeanor or felony, should hire both a defense attorney and immigration attorney?
Just before that, you were speaking a little bit about how maybe obscure this world is of the intersection of immigration and criminal law. And it made me think that maybe a big misconception is that if an immigrant is charged with a crime, they are done, right? There's nothing to do. It's going to be bad, and there's no difference on the degree, or it's going to be bad, period. We don't even think about it. It is what it is. And that's not true. That is not true because even though the law, and particularly the Immigration and Nationality Act that regulates all this intersection between immigration and criminal law, provides certain guidelines of what creates certain consequences, if that makes sense. So, for example, there may be offenses that may trigger deportability grounds, and then you're facing maybe a deportation and you have to defend yourself from that, etc., etc. There are other crimes that may not make you deportable, but they may make you inadmissible, which is another whole category under the immigration law, which brings issues with traveling. Maybe something will affect your eligibility for naturalization, even though it doesn't make you inadmissible and even though it doesn't make you deportable. All of that to say that it is just such a big world and it's so technique and so difficult and obscure, as we were saying. There's not a lot of information about it, and even the information that is out there, it changes every day. It's so volatile. There's case law every day and there's new policies, and so it's difficult to keep up. And
Mhm.
particularly for a criminal defense attorney, whenever you are charged with a crime, you have a right to a government funded attorney to defend you in your criminal proceedings. That is not the case for
Right.
immigration. And your criminal defense attorney may be a great criminal defense attorney, but also they may have never have any relationship whatsoever with immigration law. And that's okay too, because just as doctors, lawyers, we also specialize in things. I don't know anything about tax law, but all of that to say that a criminal defense attorney may need some type of collaboration with someone that knows about that intersection between criminal law and immigration law. So in that sense, of course, ideally would be one person that knows both, but in practice it
That's
is very
asking for
hard.
a lot of knowledge base and keeping up with, right?
Exactly. In
Wow.
practice, it is very hard because they're two very different worlds. But also, a great plan or a great solution is to bring both experiences to the
Right.
equation.
And I think part of what you're alluding to at the beginning is that we want to take the stigma out of this for any immigrant. It's best, of course, just in general, to consult, have a meeting with an attorney, because especially when, like you were saying, that essentially, like, criminal defense lawyer, they might not have all the knowledge base. Even to lawyers, we associate certain keywords with certain scenarios. So yeah, a criminal defense attorney might not understand that trigger event or keyword, that like, oh, I need to consult with. Even if they realize they need to consult with a immigration attorney like yourself, they might not know who to go to first, right?
Hmm.
Again, thank you for joining the recording today to
Of
share
course.
information. Okay, so then I think there's also a misunderstanding, possibly by criminal defense attorneys and clients, is that okay, you come in, you review everything, and then maybe the mutual client's thinking, okay, criminal defense attorney, do what you need to do to get this reduced or get this. It doesn't
Mm.
work easily that way, right, Nora?
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I feel like in that sense, it is important also as immigration attorneys to work on that kind of skills of collaboration with other attorneys and the other way around, because there's a lot of assumptions, right? So sometimes I get asked, I don't know, oh, what are the immigration consequences of a DWI? And I'm like, I hate to be this person, but it depends. Like to give you
Mhm,
the most lawyerly answer ever, but it really does depend. It
mhm.
depends on your immigration status. It depends on even if you are an LPR, how a lawful permanent resident or a green card holder, how long have you been a green card holder? It just it feels less as an equation or a math that you can just like sum and get to the conclusion, and more like a maze or a puzzle where you're having to put all these pieces together to get to the best answer
Right,
possible, because sometimes we don't have case law specific on that
right.
matter or stuff. And in the other way, immigration attorneys, sometimes we are very easily, I don't know. We very easily tell our colleagues, criminal defense attorneys, like, oh, just dismiss these charges. That would be the best outcome possible.
Right.
I guess that's the ultimate goal of every
Yeah,
criminal
that would be the
defense
preferred goal in
attorney.
general. That's vicious.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think we both need to work on our collaboration skills.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great word, a key word right there, collaboration, because, man, that's what I was trying to say, I guess, at least for maybe the perspective of defense attorney, criminal defense attorney, and maybe even the client, is that, oh, you can easily provide that one or two recommendations, and then the criminal defense attorney could take action on it, negotiate that. But we know it's not that easy. We know it requires collaboration to, as the facts evolve. The facts don't evolve, but the
Mm,
fact gathering, the fact collection by the attorneys from the client takes time. Sometimes
mm,
I've heard of people, or even our own clients, for, doesn't even have to be related to criminal past, but or charge, is that it
mm.
can take some time for a client to reveal facts, to share comfort
Yeah,
level, right?
yeah.
Even though they know they can trust the attorney that they hired. Okay, Nora. So with that, you did also mention permanent resident. So are you saying that if I have a certain crime, I can't just leave to go on a cruise, on a Disney cruise or something?
It depends.
Talk to Nora. Schedule me with Nora, then you'll know the answer.
No,
But
but for
yeah.
example, there's this category of crimes. They're called crimes involving moral turpitude. They're fascinating to me in like an intellectual level because it means nothing, and it's just there's a lot of case law and there's a lot of like construction around it, and I don't
Hmm.
know, it's just like a very interesting concept. But in practice,
Hmm.
it also triggers something that it's called about this inadmissibility grounds, right? And sometimes something that may seem minor may trigger that inadmissibility ground. So, for example, in Texas, for convictions for theft after 2016, And especially if it's like a class A misdemeanor that is up to 1 year
Right.
sentence, you may be facing issues with traveling. And it is a minor issue in the sense of maybe someone, I don't know, took some stuff from Walmart and it was enough money that it became a class A misdemeanor. It seems minor in the sense it's not violent. There's, I don't know, it doesn't sound like these big crimes that people
Right.
think, oh,
Right.
it's gonna be so bad.
Right.
So even something like this, like a theft that is a misdemeanor, maybe they even didn't went to prison, they just did probation. There's a lot of stuff that would
Yeah.
make it look
Well,
okay, but that in reality may bring issues for the person.
here's an example is that I've heard of people consuming something like Xanax pills.
Mhm.
When they consume it, it's, oh, no big deal.
Mhm.
Of course, before you take that next one, you might, or put it in your car, whatnot, you might want to talk to immigration attorney first before you
Mhm.
consume that or possess that.
It's
But
a
anyway,
controlled substance.
exactly. But
Yeah.
again, most people don't use that key word phrase that we think of
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
immigration attorneys. They don't think that. They just think, oh, it's just Xanax, no big deal.
Totally. Totally.
Mhm.
Totally.
What are some things like a couple best practices for criminal defense attorneys to ensure they're complying with that Supreme Court case, their duties under Padilla versus Kentucky? Are you able to-
Well, I would say, first of all, bring in the immigration attorney as soon as possible, in the sense of, okay, the moment you learn that your potential client or your client now is not a citizen of the United States, and even if they are, if the criminal convictions are a little bit before, if they're too close to the dates, I don't know, even if you have something that doesn't ring a bell, just
Mhm.
call your immigration attorney and let them know you need a advice and what they need, right? They may be able to help with doing the intake or give you a list of questions they need, whatever the information they need to do the work. And so that way you don't have to be running in the end whenever you are super pressed with a plea deal. You can come with some proposal to the table with the district attorney. This is what I'm proposing. This is what we need. We require this amount of days for sentencing. We would like to see if you would be able to amend this charge to this other similar charge, etc., etc. I would also say that a good practice would also be to take the time to gather all the relevant information, even though maybe for you may not make sense, but to give the immigration attorney all the information, hopefully complete criminal history and all of the relevant documents, if there are prior convictions, all of those records too. So the more detail you give to the immigration attorney, the more detailed the memo will be.
Absolutely. With that, I know that's so much value right there for the
Mm.
audience. Thank you so much. Just thinking in contrast or conversely, what if a criminal defense attorney doesn't follow the comply with those duties?
That's where the name Padilla memo come from, right? This is a Supreme Court case called Padilla versus Kentucky. And what the Supreme Court said in that case was that as a part of the Sixth Amendment right to counsel, criminal defense attorney have the duty of advising their non-citizen clients of the immigration consequences of their plea deals or their proposed plea deals or their charges. What that means in terms of what happens is that if a criminal defense attorney does not provide this advice, this person, this client may have grounds to bring a ineffective assistance of counsel claim. And I think it's just a difficult position to be put in because that means you violated an ethical obligation, but also a legal and constitutional obligation as a criminal defense attorney. And just also in terms of conscience, I think you do want to feel good with your practice, knowing that you did everything you had to do for that particular client and their particular needs. So I think there are legal, constitutional, ethical, and conscious reasons for doing this, and there are consequences that can come with failing to do.
You know what? And so thank you, Nora. And to the criminal defense attorneys or even people out there that may be charged with a crime, please know that immigration attorneys in general love to collaborate. It's just trying to build in that time to offer that service. So I just want to make it known to the audience that here at Green Card Guys, we've been collaborating with Nora and she's been very helpful to others. So please contact us and Nora if you need some assistance. There's so much going on in 2025. But is there something that you'll be able to share, just cut through the noise, the jungle of everything, the forest as so many things are happening in this year? Are there any recent trends, legal trends or case law that you'll be able to share with us that you think could be like significant for people to know?
I do think that the entanglement, like the enmeshing of these immigration and criminal law worlds have been becoming more and more close together from the 90s to today. But definitely in this last year, let's say 2025, in particular in this administration, there has been more efforts to enlarge or include more crimes in the list of bad immigration consequences, from eligibility for bond to all the scrutiny that they're doing for naturalization applications now. I do see a trend where not only they're trying to make this even more broader so that more people fall into these bad consequences, but also just playing with whatever we have right now to become a little bit more strict and look more into things that maybe before weren't that relevant. So yeah, that's what I was saying in the beginning. I think it's becoming
Yeah,
more and more relevant every day. So I do think
right.
it's important to keep thinking about these issues.
I'd like to add that just people need to know about the Lincoln Riley Act that was passed in January 2025. It's just interesting timing how it just got passed so quickly.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a little bit suspect that,
Yeah,
of course, rest in peace to Lincoln Riley herself and her,
yeah.
condolences to her family. But that crime of unaliving does not match the actual criminal activities or charges mentioned in Lincoln Riley Act
Not
itself.
even. Yeah,
So
yeah,
just food for thought for others in a sense
yeah.
that so if you get charged with certain crime or any crime really, I'm not talking about like a traffic citation or speeding or failure to have a license or insurance, knowing that if you have to go to court, a criminal court, please contact, of course, number one, a criminal defense attorney. But if
Yeah.
the ask your criminal defense attorney or even the public defender if they know of a criminal or immigration attorney or just immigration attorney in general at the very least, and maybe that immigration attorney can point you in the right direction. So if you're watching this right now, go ahead and save the information because again, I tell clients, even after they get resident status, after we help secure legal status, we're now here to help you maintain legal status.
Mm.
Especially like you said, Nora, the policies of becoming a U.S. citizen have become a little bit more difficult lately. Let's see. So then I want to get your experience, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more specifically your past experience, Nora. What has there been a surprising case or a strategy from you, for example, has changed the outcome for the better that you're able to share generally? Of course, not sharing attorney-client conflict.
I always like to, we talked about theft before, right? Of how it seems like a minor offense and it can have very bad consequences, actually. And the case of theft is very good for that matter because if you are in Texas, if you are convicted of a theft offense classified as a class A misdemeanor, and you get sentenced to 1 year in prison, even if it's probated, meaning you do not go to jail, but you're doing community service outside, etc., etc., that is an aggravated felony. And an aggravated felony is the boogeyman of immigration law. It bars you for all types of relief. It makes you deportable. You'll never be able to become a citizen. So it's interesting how sometimes doing little things, such as instead of being a year sentence, doing a 364 days sentence, which is a very fair negotiation. And a lot of district attorneys are willing to do that change. you can avoid an aggravated felony just by doing that little change in the pleading paperwork. Instead of
Right.
1 year, you plead to 364 days, and then that you have a safe immigration plea.
True.
Absurd, but that's how it works.
So yeah, any criminal defense attorney or public defender, you have to have a person like Nora in your contacts for
Hmm.
sure. Preferred contacts, or if not, a necessary contact of clients with crimes, obviously.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
for sorry for interrupting you, but
Oh,
some because some things that make sense in criminal law they may not make sense in immigration law. So another example that I always love to use is whenever people are charged with domestic violence and violation of a protective order. A typical plea is that the district attorney offers to dismiss the domestic violence, and then the person pleads to the to the violation of a protective order, and seems good. You're getting rid of the worst charge and you're pleading to the less worst charge. In immigration law, violation of a protective order, a conviction like that makes you deportable. Whereas conviction for assault, family violence doesn't make you deportable necessarily. And that makes no sense. One would think it would be the opposite.
yeah. That's a great distinction there that it doesn't
So
necessarily match up in a sense. And to go back to what you're mentioning about like theft, if it's a class A misdemeanor in Texas, where I'm located, and you're saying with 365 days or more, and you're saying that's an aggravated felony, the word felony can associate with a misdemeanor. So
exactly.
an aggravated felony, just to share with everyone in the audience, aggravated felony is a phrase used in immigration purposes.
Mm,
Even though your criminal documents don't say felony, that's why again you have to have consult with a criminal immigration attorney also, just like Nora. This has been so helpful for the audience. Nora, if you don't, we're going to have your information down below in the description box for
perfect.
those who need it. Again, we're here to try to take the stigma out of this. Please don't wait till last second, even for, I feel like I have to give the laundry list of all the scenarios, but
Yeah.
even for something like cancellation removal, you have a limit of number of days you can be in jail, serving
Mm,
time in jail. So
mm,
there's all these different, I guess you could say, nuances that it's difficult to have a full checklist for criminal defense attorneys.
yeah.
So you have to have someone like Nora needs to have a one-on-one with a criminal defense attorney as well. Nora, is there anything? I know there's again so much to share. Is there anything else you want to mention before we end the show?
I would just say I feel like because there are a lot of things happening and changing in immigration law, one may seem a little bit unhopeful, or you may say, "Oh, what is the point?" Whatever. But I do think this is a great opportunity to be creative, to exercise like creativity. Even though if you think it's so bad, there may be things that can be done, and it's also an interesting exercise to brainstorm with other colleagues from a different branch of the law to see how you both can find a better outcome for that person. Just putting it out there that it's also an interesting opportunity and not letting the sorrow.
Especially when I know there's litigation right now to basically have bond available for people with iwi. But yeah, don't give up. But sooner the better you talk to attorneys in general. Hopefully they'll get you connected to the right person, professional. Because as mentioned, if on paper they're eligible initially for cancellation removal, they might not be anymore if they have served too many days in jail. And that includes time before signing the plea deal, right?
Mm,
So, or having a trial by a bench or jury. You know what, Nora? This has been so valuable. I've learned a lot from you today. We'll probably have you on again. Sound okay?
perfect.
All
Super
right.
happy to be back, and thank you for the invitation again. This was great.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.